welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are doing our last of our Easter cards, and we're going to be doing some dry embossing, some ink stamping, and we're going to have a play with some pattern paper. So I have some pattern paper here that are some scraps that I've cut down. I don't have like an actual size of them, they were just scraps that I cut down. These are from a PinkFresh Studio kind of like warehouse cleaning kind of thing. And I went through my PinkFresh inks and found some colors that I matched the colors in the pattern paper. I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Happy Easter stamp set. And I went ahead and did some embossing and some die cutting off screen just to save some time. I have this Momenta die set that I purchased from Hobby Lobby, and I went ahead and die cut that out 6 times. We're going to be stamping one of those crosses from that stamp set inside there. I went through my stash and found 3 different embossing folders that I just really liked the patterns of and thought they would pair nicely with this pattern paper I have. This one I think is from We Are Memory Keepers, but I'm not sure. The next 2 are both from Darice. I know that Gina K has a Swiss dot embossing folder, and that would be an option for that one. But you can use any embossing folders you have in your stash. That would work. These are just the ones that I chose today. This one is also from Darice. This is the die set that I'm using. Like I said, it's from Momenta. I bought it from Hobby Lobby, and I just chose this kind of more ornate version. And like I said, we're going to be stamping those crosses inside this little die cut. And I wanted to, because this has some sharp points, it would be very difficult for me to always make sure that my stamp was centered. So that's why I kept this negative piece of my die. I can place this in the corner and it's attached to my sticky mat so that when I go to stamp this down, it can be centered each time. And I don't have to struggle to get it recentered. The back of my stamp is kind of dirty. My daughter has a tendency to play with them, and she plays with them usually on the floor. And so it's just a testament that I need to clean my floors more, I guess. To make sure that my placement is right, I've actually flipped this die over to what is considered to be the back side of it, and I'm going to stamp this down in kind of one of my lighter inks. And I'm just using this to check placement, to make sure that I like where the stamp is centered, that I like its placement there. And if I need to make any adjustments, I can. I thought that was pretty good, so we're going to go ahead and flip them all to the correct side and go ahead and stamp them all out. The colors I'm using today are Citron, Coral Reef, Cherry Blossom, Mermaid Cove, Sky Blue, Persimmon, and all of those are PinkFresh Studio inks today. Like I said, I chose some inks that I felt matched the pattern paper I'm using well. Usually when you get a pattern paper pad from PinkFresh Studio, they tell you what inks are in there, but my covers are missing, so I just kind of winged it and eyeballed it. The cross that I used has florals around it, but the inside of it is open. There's no inking there, so I'm taking the solid cross and I'm actually stamping that inside of it using the same ink that I stamped the open and floral version. And I'm going to do that for all of the colors, and then these will be done. This stamp set does have a arched greeting that you could put on there, but I wanted to have that Happy Easter greeting off to the side and just kind of have this be where my cross lands. The panels that I dry embossed with my embossing folder, those measured 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to trim those down 1/4 of an inch on the top and one side, just so that I can have a little bit of the card base showing. We're going to jazz up these card bases, these white card bases, in a little bit, but for now I'm just going to trim all of these down just 1/4 of an inch on 2 sides, just to make sure that I can have a little bit of a border showing. Next, I'm going to take those pattern paper scraps that I told you about, and I'm just going to lay those on with some wet glue and just kind of layer them off to the left-hand side of these panels, leaving a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch kind of gap on the left-hand side between the pattern paper and the embossing. Just for some interest, again, some place for your eye to rest. And then I'm going to trim off the top and the bottom of those just using a pair of scissors just to even those up. and give them a more polished and finished look. Next, I went through and kind of paired each of these crosses up with a pattern paper that I felt accented them. And now I'm going to take some foam tape from Altenew. This is Instant Dimension foam tape from Altenew, and I'm going to apply that to the back of each one of these cross pieces. I wanted these to stand out a little more. The Altenew Instant Dimension foam tape gives you a little bit of lift, but not a ton of dimension, so these would still be easily mailed without having to have extra postage. But if you wanted to be extra careful, you could just cut out this dimension entirely and just glue these down flat to your pattern paper. Next, I'm going to release the backer on each of those crosses and put them kind of down toward the bottom left-hand side of the pattern paper, trying to center it within the pattern paper, but it's going to be, with how the card is oriented and arranged, it's going to essentially be on the bottom left-hand side of our card panels. And I did that to all of them. And then for our sentiments, I'm going to take that Happy Easter from the Simon Says Stamp Happy Easter set, stamp them again in all of those same PinkFresh Studio inks. And then I'm going to do a little bit of die cutting again using that same Momenta die set. This is the second largest die, and I have shifted it over to where essentially the right hand side of that die is hanging over. And so it's hanging over a straight edge. And it mimics and makes the card look cohesive because it matches the shape that the cross is cut from. And I'm just going to kind of play and see. I thought about me leaving this flat on the card, but I feel like it needed just a little bit of lift. So I will use that same Instant Dimension foam tape from Altenew and apply that to each of these die cuts once I've die cut them out. And then I'm going to place them kind of toward the top right hand section of these card fronts. And then these cards will almost be done. Like I said, I trimmed these panels down so that we could have a little bit of a white border showing around our card. With that being said, you don't necessarily have to cut off this excess on the right-hand side that's hanging off, but I'm going to because I think it looks a little more finished. So I'm going to flip the card to the back. It's easier for me to cut off excess paper from the back, and that's what I'm going to do right now is just flip this card front panel to the back and trim off that excess. So I was looking at the card base and I felt like it looked too white, too plain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same coordinating ink cube and I'm going to run it across the very edges of these card fronts, or of these card bases. I first did this and I was just trying to see if I liked it. So I'm just very lightly with like the very edge of these cubes, running it across the edges of these panels of these card bases here, just to see if I like the look. And spoiler alert, I do, but I felt like it needed more color. So I'm going to go direct to paper with these cubes and really bulk up the saturation on these panels. And that's what you see me doing here. I'm going directly to the card front with the ink cubes, applying just a little bit of ink around the edges. And that really helps kind of bring this all together. So if you don't have a lot of colored card bases or colored cardstock in your stash, but you have gobs of inks, this is a great way to fake it. Is just to use your inks to color just the very edges of your bases. You don't have to color the whole thing because it's not going to be seen. The only parts that are going to be seen are the very edges. So this is a great way to kind of fake it and make it look like you used a colored card base, but you didn't. Notoriously, white is usually cheaper than your colors, and so this is a great like money saver also, particularly if you have re-inkers for your ink pads. This is a great way to save some pennies and give a clean and polished look without busting the bank. The final step is to glue these onto their coordinating faux colored card base, and then these cards are done. You could always add some sparkle if you wanted to, but I don't feel like these cards really needed it. I feel like the dry embossing and the pattern paper really makes it to where this is an interesting card, but a very simple design. You could have inked around the die cuts the same way that we inked around the card base. But I just didn't do that in today's video, but that is definitely an option. That would help those stand out, particularly the sentiment, a little bit more from the card base. But this is all 6 cards done. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I hope you felt inspired during this Easter kind of card series. And I do hope you have a wonderful Easter, and we will see you next time. Bye.